If you've ever walked away from a conversation replaying it in your head, feeling angry, disrespected, or drained, this message is for you. Because the truth is, the people who bother you the most are not powerful, but they have been given power. And today that ends. Most people spend their entire lives reacting to comments, reacting to criticism, reacting to disrespect. They think this is normal. They think this is strength. But what if I told you the strongest person in any room is the one who cannot be emotionally moved? What if I told you that the moment someone can trigger your anger, they control you? And most people are being controlled every single day without realizing it. Here's the part no one ever explains. Anger feels justified. It feels intelligent. It feels like self-respect. But it is often the fastest way to lose authority, clarity, and peace all at once. And the world quietly rewards the calm, not the reactive. In the next few minutes, you're going to understand something that most people never do. You'll see why trying to win arguments is keeping you stuck, why explaining yourself is exhausting you, and why the people who seem unbothered are not lucky, they are trained. This isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about mastering it. It's about becoming so grounded that disrespect passes through you without leaving a mark. So stable that chaos cannot attach itself to you. So controlled that silence becomes more powerful than any reaction. If you stay with me until the end, you won't just think differently. You'll respond differently. And once that happens, you'll realize something dangerous in the best way possible. When nothing can disturb your inner state, nothing and no one can control you. Let's correct the biggest misunderstanding most people carry about anger. They think anger equals strength. They believe raising their voice proves confidence, that reacting quickly shows dominance, that being visibly upset means they are not someone to be crossed. But in reality, anger is not power. It is the absence of power, because the moment you lose control of your emotions, someone else has gained it. Think about it carefully. The angriest person in the room is never the one in charge. The one in charge is the person who can remain steady while everyone else is unraveling. Emotional control is not passive. It is not weak. It is deliberate restraint. And restraint requires far more strength than reaction ever will. Most people don't realize this because anger feels productive in the moment. It gives the illusion of action. Your heart rate increases. Your body prepares for confrontation. Your mind races with words you wish you could say faster and sharper. But none of that is clarity. It is chemical. It is adrenaline pretending to be authority. And when chemicals run the conversation, logic leaves the room. Here is the uncomfortable truth. If someone can change your emotional state with a sentence, they are steering you. They don't need power, status, or intelligence. They just need access to your triggers. And once they find them, they can move you wherever they want. That is not strength. That is vulnerability disguised as intensity. Real control starts when you understand that emotions are information, not instructions. Feeling anger does not mean you must act on it. Feeling disrespected does not require retaliation. The feeling arrives, and you decide what happens next. Most people skip that decision. They let the emotion decide for them. And that is how arguments escalate, relationships fracture, and reputations are quietly damaged. Calm people are not calm because nothing bothers them. They are calm because they have trained themselves to pause. That pause is everything. In that brief moment, you reclaim your authority. You step out of reflex and into intention. You move from reaction to response. And the person across from you can feel it immediately. You've seen this dynamic before. Two people face the same provocation. One explodes, demands respect, needs the last word. The other stays composed, speaks slowly, or says nothing at all. And strangely, it's the second person who seems more powerful, more grounded, more difficult to manipulate. That's not an accident. That's discipline. Anger often comes from a hidden belief that you must defend yourself in every moment. That silence means loss. That not responding means you've been defeated. But the opposite is usually true. When you don't react, you deprive the situation of fuel. You stop the fire by removing oxygen. And nothing frustrates a provocateur more than realizing they can't move you. Control also means understanding timing. Not every truth needs to be spoken immediately. Not every boundary needs to be defended emotionally. Sometimes the most strategic move is to wait, to let the moment pass, to let the other person reveal themselves fully while you remain composed. People often defeat themselves when given enough space. There is also a deeper layer here, one that most people avoid looking at. Anger is often tied to ego. It shows up when your self-image feels threatened, when you believe respect must be enforced, when being right feels essential to your identity. But the more fragile the ego, the louder the reaction. The more secure the person, the less they need to prove. Ask yourself this honestly: do you want to feel powerful, or do you want to be powerful? Feeling powerful is temporary. It spikes and crashes. Being powerful is quiet, stable, consistent. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need to win every exchange. It knows that long-term control matters more than short-term release. When you stop reacting, something unexpected happens. People start adjusting their behavior around you. Conversations change. Conflicts de-escalate faster. Not because you demanded respect, but because your presence commands it. Emotional stability creates psychological gravity. People sense it. They respond to it. This is why the ability to stay calm under pressure is one of the highest forms of authority. Leaders, negotiators, and people who influence others at a deep level all share this trait. They don't rush. They don't flinch. They listen more than they speak. And when they do speak, their words land with weight. The goal is not to suppress anger. Suppression creates resentment. The goal is to master it. To notice it without becoming it. To let it pass through without letting it take over the steering wheel. This takes practice. It takes self-awareness. And it takes humility, because you must admit that your reactions are habits, not truths. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you reinforce a new identity. You become someone who cannot be easily shaken. Someone who is not reactive, not predictable, not controllable. And that identity compounds. Over time, you don't just act calm, you become calm. So here is the reflection to leave with you. The next time you feel anger rising, don't ask how to express it. Ask who benefits if you lose control. Ask what power you are about to give away. Then pause, breathe, and choose differently. Because the strongest person in the room is not the one who reacts the fastest. It is the one who decides when, how, or if they respond at all. Most people believe they are angry because of what someone did or said. They point outward. They name the person, the comment, the behavior, the disrespect. But that belief is the very thing that keeps them trapped. Because the moment you say, "They made me feel this way," you've handed them authority over your inner world. And once someone has that authority, peace becomes conditional. It depends on their behavior, their mood, their self-control. And that is a dangerous place to live. Nothing can bother you without your permission. That idea sounds simple, almost obvious, but it is deeply uncomfortable once you really sit with it. Because it means responsibility comes back to you. It means you are not a victim of other people's words. You are a participant in how you interpret them, and interpretation is power. Consider this. The same comment can be said to two different people. One is unshaken. The other is furious. If the words themselves were the cause, the reaction would be identical. But it isn't. The difference lies in meaning. One person assigns weight, the other doesn't. One internalizes. The other observes. This is where emotional freedom begins. Most irritation comes from expectation. You expect people to be reasonable. You expect fairness. You expect respect. You expect awareness. And when those expectations aren't met, frustration appears. But expectations are agreements you make silently without consent from the other person. When they break them, you feel wronged. Yet they never agreed to play by your internal rules. Once you recognize this, anger starts to lose its grip. You stop being surprised by human behavior. You stop demanding maturity from people who have not developed it. And you stop personalizing actions that were never about you to begin with. Here is a critical shift. Other people's behavior is information, not an insult. It tells you about their awareness, their stress, their emotional regulation, their internal conflicts. It rarely tells you anything about your value. When someone lashes out, interrupts, dismisses, or criticizes, they are often revealing what they are carrying, not what you deserve. This is why calm people rarely feel attacked. They see patterns instead of threats. They recognize insecurity when it shows up as arrogance. They recognize fear when it shows up as control. They recognize pain when it shows up as hostility. And once you see it clearly, it becomes very difficult to take it personally. There is also a subtle ego trap here. Taking things personally can feel important. It can feel like self-respect, like you are standing up for yourself. but often it is just ego defending an image. True self-respect does not need constant defense. It is stable. It does not rise and fall with other people's opinions. When you no longer need everyone to understand you, agree with you, or validate you, emotional disturbances decrease dramatically. You realize that misunderstanding is not a threat. Disagreement is not disrespect. And silence is not defeat. These distinctions free enormous mental energy. Another reason people get bothered is because they confuse engagement with obligation. Just because someone speaks to you does not mean you must emotionally meet them where they are. You are allowed to let words pass through without catching them. You are allowed to listen without absorbing. You are allowed to disengage internally even if you remain polite externally. This is emotional boundaries at their highest level. Not walls. Not coldness. But clarity. You choose what enters your internal space. Everything else stays outside. When someone tries to provoke you, what they are often seeking is regulation. They want to offload their discomfort onto you. If you react, you accept the transfer. Now you carry what was never yours. Calm refusal breaks that cycle. You let them keep what belongs to them. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means perspective. You can care without being controlled. You can be present without being pulled. You can acknowledge without absorbing. This is a practiced skill, and like any skill, it strengthens with repetition. At a philosophical level, this comes down to identity. When you know who you are, external input loses power. Criticism becomes data. Praise becomes pleasant but unnecessary. Insults become noise. The more fragile the identity, the more reactive the person. The more grounded the identity, the quieter the response. Ask yourself,